I've had a few requests to go over the graphical calculator, which I use in some of my videos. So I'm going to do that now, and I will probably put a full course together on the graphical calculator because it's very, very useful, and it's a really good teaching aid, and it's really simple and it's free. So I'll cut from this and I'll head over to the tool. Now, in order to get the tool, if you just get into a browser, type in Desmos, that's DESMOS, and you'll see here it comes up at the top. You can click on the graphical calculator, and this is us in the graphing calculator. Now, it's really straightforward. If you like to, you can log in, so you can create an account and you can log in. Now, I'm already logged in here at the moment, so I can click in here, I can go sign out. Okay, so you can go here and you can sign up. You don't need to sign up in order to use it, but it's quite useful, I think, because it allows you to save your files to a folder, and they will always be there for you to go back and get. So I'm already signed up, and I signed up through Google. Okay, so I can just, in fact, I logged in, so I can just log in through Google. Okay, so that's me logged in, and I've got access to all of my files. Now, I'm not going to show you the files just now. What we'll do is we'll just run through an example. So let's say, for example, you wanted to teach some trigonometry. So in order to do that, let's just work through an example of creating the sine, the cosine, and the tangent functions. Now, you can get in here to the left hand side, and you can actually just type in the function that you're interested in. So you could just type in sine x, and it'll draw out the sine x, and of course the cos x, I'll put that in, and the tan x. Okay, so it's assuming that this is the x coordinate here, and this is the y coordinate. Now, in order to teach it with a little bit more intuition, what we're going to do is we're actually going to draw a circle, and we're going to have the respective lines of the triangle moving round the circle, and those are going to generate the sine, the cosine, and the tangent. So let's go ahead and we'll do that now. Now, whenever I start this, I like to try and keep everything neat and tidy. So if you click on this plus button here, you'll see that you've got an option for a folder. So if you click on that, and I'm going to call this folder trigonometry. Okay, so it means I can put stuff in the folder and it's out of the way. So we're going to start off with our circle. So we can get a circle, we can draw a circle by using x squared plus y squared is equal to, now let's say, to keep it simple here, it's equal to 1. So we're going to draw a circle of radius 1. So we're going to have x. Now, to get the squared term, you just use your shift and the little hat key. So usually the hat keys, the numbers, key number 6 on your keyboard. So that's x squared, and then you can put a space in, so just the right arrow, and then you can go plus, and again you can go y hat 2, and the space again, and you can put that as equal to a value of 1, and you can see here it draws out the circle. Now, we can change the colour of the circle. We click on here, and we just hold the left mouse down, we can get and change the colour. Okay, so we'll leave it as that colour red. And it's easy enough to move the stuff about the screen. So if you just left click on the mouse, you can drag it round about. And I've got a roller on my mouse which allows me to zoom in and zoom out. So it's really quite intuitive, and it's a simple and easy tool to manipulate. So let's take this, and now we've done that, we can take this and we can stick it into our little folder here. So it means that when we click out of this, we've got a clear space here, and it keeps our head clear. So what we want to do now is create a little dot on the outside here, and we want to run the dot all the way around the circle. So let's see how we're going to do that. What we're going to do is we click on the plus. Well, we don't actually need to click on the plus here. We can just click here, and you can see it generates a new section. If you click here, you see the new section has just been generated. So we begin here, and if we just put a set of brackets in, so a left bracket and a right bracket, so that's going to be a point. Now, what we want to do is we want to create the point on the circle. So the x coordinate of the circle is just going to be given by our cos x, and the y coordinate in our circle is going to be given by our sine x. So we can put in here cos x, comma, sine x. Now you see here that it comes up with an error, okay? It says too many variables. Now, the problem we have here at the moment is that x and y, x is your independent variable and y is your dependent variable. So these just represent the axes. If we actually want to use an actual variable for our cos and our sine, we're going to have to call it something other than x. So what we can do is we can just call it x1, and we could call that sine x1. And you can see here it's got a slider. So if we click on the slider, you'll see instantly it's generated this little dot. Now this little dot, the coordinates of that little dot are going to be the cos of x1, which is this distance, and the sine of x1, which is this distance here. And you can see that if you click on it, again you can change the colour, but we'll keep it in red at the moment. Also, if we drag this over, you can make it a little bit bigger, so you can see that it's got a little bit bigger now. And this here is going to be our slider, so it's going to move. As we move, it's going to move round about the circle. But of course, we only want it to move from a point from 0, and we want it to go all the way around 360 degrees. Now, we're not going to use degrees, we're going to use radians. So we want it to go from 0 all the way around to 2 pi radians. So if we can click on here, and it'll give us our limits. So our limits are going to be from 0, and it's going to be 2 pi. So you just type in 2, and then on your keyboard just put in P and I, and you see it changes it into the actual pi. So that's allowed us then to get a little dot that's going to work its way round about the circle. So you can press play here as well, and it'll just work through, and it works through automatically for us. Okay, so that's us done another little bit of our trigonometry lesson. So what we can do is we can take these and we can put them into our folder out of the way. Now, what we want to do now is we want to get a line, and I want to get a line from this point here down to the x-axis, and we also want to get a line from this point here down to the origin in order to make this right-angled triangle. Now, in order to get a line from this point to this point, what you have to do is you have to give the tool the coordinates of the two endpoints of the line. So if we click on the plus here, you'll see a thing here that says table. So if you click on that, now this table allows us to put in the points, and it will allow us to draw a line. So we know what this point is, we've already generated it. It's going to be our cos x1 and our sine x1. And you can see that automatically, you can see the dot has appeared here. Now the other point that we're interested in is where it meets the x-axis. So it's going to meet the x-axis at this distance along here, which is our cos x1, and the height is just going to be 0 because it's always going to be on this axis. So we're going to have our cos x1, and we'll have a value of 0, and you can see we've got the other end of the line. Now if we were to then click on this point here and we hold down our mouse button for a couple of seconds, you'll see this coming up. Now what we can do is we can go to the line section and we can drag this along, and you'll see that we've now got a line here. So it means that if we were to take this and we can put it into our folder, and what we'll do is we'll actually take this here out of the folder because that's the one we're going to use to prove that everything works. So what we can do is we move this round the circle, and you can see as we move it round the circle, you can see that that line does actually follow that point. So that's one of the lines that we were interested in. Now the other line we want to put in is from this point here down to the origin. So again, we're going to go plus, we'll put in our table, and we can put in both points. So the first point is this point here, which we already know. It's the cos x1 and sine x1. And the other end here is the origin. Well, the origin is simply 0, 0. So you can see it's created those 2 points. If we hold our mouse button on this point here. Now what we'll do is we'll change it to the same colour, which is this colour, and we'll also create the line. So if you click here, you can see it's generated that line. So we can take this and we'll stick it up into our folder out the way, and you can see as we move it round about, you can see that we've created exactly what we were looking for, which is a right angle triangle, which maps out the point here, which is given by this point here. So as this point works its way round about, you can see this triangle changing. So we'll just press play on that, and you can see it working round. Now what we want to do now is we want to create the sine, the cosine and the tangent, but we want to generate it so that it generates it along with this point. So let's say, for example, we start off with the sine. So the sine function is given by the ratio of this length here, which is our y, divided by this length here. If we want to call it r for the radius, it's going to be y divided by r. Now we know in this case here we've made r equal to a value of 1. So it means that the sine of this angle here is just going to be y divided by 1. So it's just going to be the y. So it's just going to be this height. So we want this height to be mapped out along this axis here as this point goes round the circle. So let's go ahead and we can do that now. So we can simply put in the sine function. So here's a sine function, but we're not interested in the sine function from the negative values. It's just from 0 up to 2 pi. It's from here up to this point here. So to get rid of the stuff that's before 0 and after 2 pi, we can put in the curly brackets. So there's a curly bracket, there's another curly bracket, and we can put in some values here. So what we want to do is we want to make the value of our x here, well, it's got to be greater than 0, so we can put greater, and we put the 0 here. So you can see that this side here has disappeared. Now it's got to be less than 2 pi, so you just put 2, and you can just type in p and I, and it comes up with a pi. So now we're going from 0 to 2 pi. But it's not quite what we want, because nothing happens as we work our way around here. All we've got is our sine function sitting there. Because what we really want to do is, we don't want the top point here to be 2 pi. We actually wanting this here to be the variable x1. So as x1 changes, we want the value of our sine x to change with it. So if we were to change this 2 pi here, and we can change it to x1, then you can see now we've got what we're looking for. As we move this round, you'll see that it generates the sine function. So let's quickly see that we understand here what we have. We're going to have the sine of this angle here is going to be the opposite here over the hypotenuse. So the opposite is this height here, and the hypotenuse is 1. So whatever this height is here divided by 1. So all we've got really is just this height. So this height here is the height from this point here down to the axis. And of course along this axis here is just our angle, which is going to be in radians. So if I was to adjust it to another position, say we went over here, you can see that this height here is just this height here. So it means that you're able to then generate the sine function, and you can see how the sine function generated by that little point going round the circle, and the ratio of the opposite divided by the hypotenuse is going to generate this sine function. So that's a nice little learning tool that you can use. So if I press pause on this, and we can take this one and we can put it up here. So it means that what we can do is we can create the cosine function. So we can say cos x, and again we're going to have our limits, and our limits are going to be x is going to be greater than 0, and it's going to be less than our value of x1. And you can see that we've generated the cosine function here. So I'll put this up here out of the way, and you can see if we run through this here, you can see we've generated the cosine function. So in this case here, the cosine function is going to be the adjacent here divided by the hypotenuse, which is this length. So the adjacent is this height here, the hypotenuse is 1. So in effect, the cosine is just going to be this length here. So this length here is going to be this height here. Okay, so now you can do the same thing for the tangent. You can put in our tan x, and we can put in our limits, and our limits are going to be x has got to be greater than a value of 0 and less than the value of our x1. And you can see it's drawn in the tan x, so we can run the slider along and you can see that the tan x function has been generated as well. So that gives us a nice little way of generating the trigonometric functions. Now if we want to make it all look a bit nicer, what we can do is we head over to the right here and we can click on the graph settings. You can put in the reverse contrast, which turns it dark, and you could also say if you wanted to get rid of the grid, and we're left with this here. And there's also an option here for projector mode. If you click on it, we've got the projector mode. It just makes things a little bit thicker and neater. So we can take this, we can press play on this, and we can move this over here. And you can see that this is now generating out our sine, cosine, and our tangent functions. Of course, whenever you go and create the video, you can also set the video up so that it only captures just this part of the screen. So it means that we'd be missing out all of the other clutter round about, and you would have a nice little learning application, and you can create nice little funky videos in order for people to understand their trigonometry. So I'll stop that there now, and that's us pretty much finished the video, and here is our finished article. This is our program that we've just created in this graphical calculator, and it's a nice little indication of how we can work out the sine, the cosine, and the tangent functions. And it's useful if you've got students and they can use the tool and they can mess about with it and they can make sure that they understand how the trigonometric functions are created. So that's just one simple little video. I've got hundreds of videos that I've built up over the last few years in order to teach people mathematics, some basic mathematics, but also some quite complicated stuff as well. And it's a really handy tool, and it's a really easy tool to use. And if you're interested in me creating any more of these, then please leave some comments down below and I'll see if I can generate a few more videos. Or if you've got a problem that you would like me to try and generate in a graphical format here in this tool, just put it down below and I'll see if I can get something created for you. So that's all for this video. Thank you for listening. I'll get you on the next video. Goodbye.